came back to New York, LA after living in Europe, and LA's gotten more like New York and more like, it's gotten more fast-paced and it's got energy. But back then it was pretty dull and boring, and I couldn't wait to get out.
So living in Europe, I know that's where kind of the seed was planted for this whole,
world conquest.
This world conquest of yours.
But I met Joost there. He was a book packager, and we were walking in Italy, in Venice, Italy, the most beautiful city in the world.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful day, and we were both kind of depressed by this Italian, everyone was supposed to be so liberal, but it was all about politics. It was just so depressing. And he just asked me, do you have an idea for a book? And I was in a good mood, the sun was shining, and the women looked beautiful, and I just improvised this idea that turned into the 48 Laws of Power, and that's how life is sometimes. I tell people, there's going to be something in your life that'll happen where it's an opportunity for you to do what you always wanted, and maybe you don't recognize it, but I knew that was it.
Really?
I knew that was it, and I just did whatever I could to make sure it happened. So
everything's aligned and the energy's there.
No, but I mean, I saw that he was interested in it, and he said, all right, you write me a book proposal for this, and I'll do what I can. And then I borrowed money from my parents, and I spent 2 months, and I wrote the proposal. And it was such a good proposal that he basically paid me to live while I wrote the book. But I just knew when I had to write that proposal that this was it. I was either going to be a failure in life or a success, and it would only hinge on this one book. And so,
What other crazy jobs did you have along the way? Because you worked at a hotel in Paris.
I once counted with a girlfriend that I had probably over 80 jobs. I was a guide for Greek ruins when I worked construction in Crete. I taught English here and in Spain. I did the first encyclopedia for the internet. I helped write an encyclopedia. I was a busboy, a waiter. I know I'm leaving out something juicy. Oh, I was a skip tracer. I worked for a detective agency.
Wow.
Helping find people who left town, without saying where they were.
Yeah. But all those things, if you think about it, helps because it's like doing research for a book. Well,
the thing about being a writer is that you have to be interested in people and life. And so I'm always wanting to know what it's like, what it's like to be Shira.
Would you want to know?
Yeah, I really would. Because then, if I really knew what made Shira tick, then Shira would become a character in my next book. So you got to be curious about people.
You do.
And having a lot of different jobs helped that, yeah.
So you went from the 48 Laws of Power, 2 years. And when it came out, I mean, you must have been so excited because this was your first book.
Yeah, I was very excited.
But you didn't have, what amazes me is you didn't even have you had a writing background, but this was your first book and it became just this gigantic success.
Well, it didn't immediately take off. It did well. It came out, I got some really good publicity. I was in USA Today, Newsweek did an article. I was on the O'Reilly Factor twice. But it sold well, but it wasn't like a huge seller. It actually sells better now than it did when it first came out. But I was so happy, because you never know. It could have just, the company gave me a big advance. There was a lot of money tied in with it. It could have just flopped.
Yeah.
Because it's a strange book. Even you admit it's a little long. You're like, God, man, it's like, I could use this as a doorstop or something. It's just so heavy, and it could have flopped. I wouldn't be here today. I'd be, back in Hollywood and whatever. So I was really happy and surprised, and I'm still really happy. I'm even more surprised that it's still doing well.
Well, you're very known in the rap community.
Yeah.
Why do you think they connect with your work?
It was kind of good timing. Originally, the hip hop world has these sort of cultural icons, and for a while it was things like The Godfather, and then what's that other, Al Pacino, Scarface.
Scarface, yeah.
And that kind of reflected the sort of violence of the time, like the late 80s. And it kind of shifted as they were moving into more being sort of business people, and then The Art of War was the big book in the hip hop world. And then they were becoming even more like entrepreneurs, where they were really trying to own their music and become business people who had power and control. Yeah. People like Jay-Z, later 50 Cent. And the book this book really hit it at the right moment. In other words, if it had come out in the 80s, I don't think it would have
Like
had
Madonna wouldn't be. I mean, I'm
No.
talking about like rap wasn't. I think they connect with the fact that they have a lot of power struggles.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, the music industry is by far the most brutal, ruthless, awful world you can be involved in. It makes Hollywood look like a pussycat. And, you know, for musicians, it's always been who owns the music. And if you don't own your music, you're like a indentured slave. And you know, a lot of black people, when they don't have MBAs, they don't have business backgrounds, they learn things from the street. And this book really helped them deal with a lot of these brutal, ruthless people, because I just laid it out straight. I'm not saying I want you all to go out there and be brutal, manipulative people. I'm just saying this is how power works, and the honesty of it really helped them deal with a lot of these people they saw. And so, in fact, it wasn't the artists; it was more the managers of these artists who were using the book to help them. You know.
And now 50 Cent, and you hang with 50 Cent now.
I wouldn't say I hang. I will be hanging with him. I've met him 3 times already. We get along really well. It's very interesting because you won't find 2 people on the planet who come from different backgrounds. You know, your middle-class Jew from LA and your hardcore hustler from Southside Queens who had the worst possible background. But when we met the first time, we just really connected.
Yeah.
We have an interest in games and strategy and warfare, and we just really connected. And so we thought, let's see if something comes out of it, and now we decided to do a book together, so that'll be my next book.
And when will that come out?
It'll be out in about a year, a little over a year.
Any expectations from it?
Well, I want it to be a great book. It's kind of like the hip-hop version of the 48 Laws of Power. I want it to sort of address what I see as this new world that we're living in, where I maintain that everybody in the world today has to be a kind of hustler. You, Shira, you have to become a consummate hustler.
Yep.
Here's how to do it, but in an intelligent way, and I'm kind of basing it on what 50's experiences and also our conversations. And I'm opening the book up to a different kind of crowd. You know, I'm going to bring the 48 Laws of Power audience that I have, and he's going to bring his audience.
Yeah,
and
we know who they are.
All 12 readers of our book. We'll see what happens. You know, hopefully it'll do well.
Well, more controversy to come, I'm sure.
Yes, I like that. I like controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want more.
Very nice. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's
Thank you,
cheers.
my
Let's
pleasure.
have.
Yes.
We'll have our drink in your napkin.
Na zdarovia.
What is that in Russian?
To your health.
Thank you.
I
You
think.
too.
Na
Success.
zdarovia.